White, the West German ambassador, Mr. Bernard Oldenkot, the French ambassador, Mr. Michel Drumes, and the chargé d'affaires of Japan, Mr. Tomikawa. General Buhari briefed the envoys on the economic and foreign policies of the new administration and stressed the importance it attaches to its relations with their countries. The envoys pledged their support to the military government in all spheres. The Federal Executive Council of the new military administration has been constituted. The head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, this afternoon at Dodon Barracks swore in the 18 ministers. Our correspondent at the Supreme Headquarters, Godfrey Odu, has the report.
The ministerial list was made public this afternoon as the 18 appointees arrived. Presiding was the head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Major General Muhammadu Buhari. Members of the Supreme Military Council, as well as the Secretary to the Federal Military Government and permanent secretaries, witnessed the ceremony which took place in the council chambers. First to be sworn in was Minister of Defense, Major General Domkat Bali, who represents Plateau State on the council. He was followed by the Minister for Federal Capital Territory, Major General Maman Batsa from Niger State. The exercise continued with Minister for Internal Affairs, Brigadier Mohamed Magoro from Sokoto State. Coming next was Minister of Employment, Labor and Productivity, Brigadier Solomon Omojoko of Ondo State. Commodore Patrick Koshoni of Lagos State was sworn in as Minister of Health, while Group Captain Samson Emeka Omerwe from Imo State took the oath as Minister of Information, Youth and Culture. Next was Lieutenant Colonel Ahmed Abdullahi of Kano State, his Minister of Communications. Following the line was the Minister of Justice, Mr. Chike of Podile from Anambra State. Alhaji Ibrahim Yerima Abdullahi, representing Bauchi State, becomes Minister of Education, Science and Technology. Others were Alhaji Abdullahi Ibrahim of Benue State, Minister of Transport and Aviation. Dr. Abubakar Shaib of Borno, Minister of Agriculture and Water Resources. And Dr. Mahmoud Tukur Gongola State becomes Minister of Commerce and Industry. Alhaji Rilwanu Lukman of Kaduna State is Minister of Mines, Power and Steel. The Ministry of External Affairs will be handled by Dr. Ibrahim Gambari, representing Kwara State, while Dr. Onolakbo Suleye from Ogun State takes charge of the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of National Planning goes to Chief Michael Sunday Adignu from Oyo State, while Professor Tam David West of the River State heads the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy. Dr. Emmanuel Nsam of the Cross River State was sworn in as Minister in charge of Works and Housing. The oath-swearing ceremony this afternoon also included two top aides of the head of state. They are Alhaji Abubakar Mamu, who is Principal Secretary, and Chief Press Secretary, Alhaji Wada Abdullahi Maida. Addressing the minister shortly after, General Buhari said that the delay in constituting the Federal Executive Council was due to the deep search for the right caliber of men. He told them that the Supreme Military Council will hold them personally responsible for the failure of projects and policies in their various departments. He also made it clear that the lifestyle and performance of the ministers will be watched closely.
The appointment of ministers has taken us some time because we had to undertake a deep search for competent Nigerians of proven integrity, high sense of discipline, public probity, and transparent honesty. Your appointment is on your personal merit, and I am assured that you will possess these sterling qualities. It is necessary to restate that this administration, born out of the circumstances very well known to you all, will not tolerate fraud, indiscipline, corruption, secondomania, misuse and abuse of public office for self or group aggrandizement, and such other vices which characterize the civilian administration of the first 4 years. Your immediate task as ministers would be to undertake a critical review of all major projects and programs being undertaken by your ministries, departments, and parastatals in order to determine their priority and scope, the stage of implementation, the quantum of work already done, the amount of funds committed to each project, etc. The purpose of this exercise, which should be completed and submitted to the Federal Executive Council by the end of April this year, is to ensure that our scarce resources budgeted for the execution of projects are spent most judiciously on viable projects and programs which will lift the nation from the doldrums of economic recession and have a positive impact on the socio-economic life of the common man. Another task before you is to proceed with speed to examine the adequacy of the existing structural organizations of the ministries to which you are assigned, and take appropriate steps to rationalize them to conform with the 18-ministry structure recently approved by the Supreme Military Council for the federal government. The aim of this administration is to instill discipline in public life. Consequently, the Supreme Military Council will not tolerate a situation where public office holders live in affluence while the general masses continue to wallow in abject poverty.
The ministers are expected to declare their assets within 6 weeks. Although Bendel State did not get a ministerial appointment, she is duly represented in the main machineries of government with 2 members on the Supreme Military Council and 1 in the Council of States. An indigene of that state also holds the position of Secretary to the Federal Military Government and Head of Service. Godfrey Odu, NTA News.
President Jafar Mohammed Nimeri of Sudan arrives in Lagos tomorrow on a 2-day official visit. His personal envoy, Mr. Omer Yassin, was at Dodon Barracks today to deliver a special message from the Sudanese president to the Nigerian head of state, Major General Muhammadu Buhari.
The Nigerian mass media have been urged to disseminate correct information and give positive guidance to the nation. Addressing media executives in Lagos today, the Chief of Staff Supreme Headquarters, Brigadier Tunde Diagbon, expressed disappointment with some of the stories carried by the Nigerian press. He said it was a departure from what the military government expects from them in this crucial period.
Write-ups and suggestions have not been helpful. Many seem to demonstrate a lack of understanding, even lack of sympathy for the objectives of the government which you held only 2 weeks ago. Some newspapers have gone to the extent of publishing half-truths and downright falsehoods. These are capable of creating confusion and causing dissension in the country. The change of government is not meant.
Braithwaite told newsmen that he had very useful discussions with Brigadier Idiagbon on issues of national interest. He said the talks were at his own instance, but declined comments on the pace of this administration, saying we should wait for the next few days. Asked if he would serve in the administration, Mr. Braithwaite said, and we quote, "My actions will show," unquote. A 2-man delegation from the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Sar Abubakar III, has handed over a special message to General Buhari at Dodon Barracks. The content of the message delivered by the Emir of Argungu, Alhaji Muhammadu Mera, is not known. The head of state expressed his appreciation for the overwhelming support the nation's traditional rulers had given the new military administration. An NTA News correspondent in Sokoto reports that a delegation from the head of state yesterday called on the Sultan in his palace. Our correspondent reports that General Buhari assured the Sultan that the deposed president, Alhaji Shehu Shagari, is well and doing fine. He said that the armed forces did not intervene to victimize any individual or group of persons, but to rid the nation of its moral and economic decadence.
Before leaving Lagos for Togo, the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Perez de Oquela, was at Dodon Barracks to say farewell to the head of state and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Major General Muhammadu Buhari. Our correspondent Godfrey Odu has the details.
The visit to Supreme Headquarters today was in fact the 3rd since the United Nations Chief Scribe arrived in the country. This 3rd meeting with the head of state, General Muhammadu Buhari, gives added dimension to the importance which the federal military government attaches to the visit of Mr. Dekwea. The courtesy call today afforded the UN Secretary General the opportunity to express gratitude for hospitality during his stay. On his part, General Buhari pressed home some important points of their previous discussions, with particular emphasis on how the United Nations system can effectively respond to Nigeria's specific needs. Primarily, Mr. Dekweya was here for a first-hand assessment of the Sahel drought and the whole problem of food shortages. But the federal government used the opportunity to expand the scope, covering Nigeria's particular problems. The head of state gave a private dinner last night in honor of the UN scribe, at which Mr. Dekweya spoke highly of Nigeria's contributions and continued commitment to the United Nations. According to the External Affairs Minister, Dr. Ibrahim Gambari, Mr. Dekweya's visit afforded his ministry an opportunity for thorough discussions with a highly knowledgeable person on a variety of issues, including Namibia and disarmament. He described Mr. Dekweya as a man who has shown great sympathy and sensitivity to Nigeria's specific needs. Mr. Dekweya, who has visited a number of other African countries, began his tour of Togo this afternoon. Godfrey Adu, NTA News.
Some members of the international community are already responding to the initiative of the new federal administration to renegotiate terms for loans and credit facilities with external creditors and international finance bodies in a bid to revitalize Nigeria's economy. Today, the head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, received a special emissary of the President of the United States of America, Mr. Ronald Reagan. For details, over to our correspondent at the Supreme Headquarters, Godfrey Odu.
At Supreme Headquarters today, the head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, received the United States roving ambassador, retired Lieutenant General Vernon Walters. Briefing the visitor on the situation in the country, General Buhari blamed the accelerated decline of the nation's economy on middlemen in the ousted regime, who he said were either party agents, legislators, or ministers, adding that all culprits would be brought to book. He said that his administration was in possession of useful documents, adding that loopholes that were exploited by unscrupulous persons to sap the nation's economy were being plugged. General Buhari gave the assurance that his administration will ensure fair trial for all persons in detention. He appealed to the international community to cooperate with Nigeria in its bid to redirect Nigeria's social and economic system to the path of sanity. Earlier on, General Walters had delivered a goodwill message to General Buhari from the President of the United States, Mr. Ronald Reagan, and expressed his appreciation for the efforts being made by the present administration to revamp the nation's economy. The External Affairs Minister, Dr. Ibrahim Gambari, who was also present at today's meeting, said that the international community takes Nigeria seriously and gave correspondents a general background to Ambassador Walters' call.
General Walters came to see the head of state and to hold discussions with Nigerian officials. This is a follow-up of the Liman Chiroma's mission. As you may well know, Liman Chiroma led a delegation which went to several world capitals to explain the reasons for the change of government and the program of both economic and political of the present military government. The Americans have responded promptly by sending Ambassador Walters to come to deliver a private message to our head of state and to hold the discussions with our officials. These discussions were held very freely, very frankly, and I think in the end it will prove very useful.
The short interview also gave correspondents an opportunity to sample government reaction on the recent developments in neighboring Chad Republic.
The head of state has indicated his concern to the chairman of the OAU and has requested him to convene another meeting whereby the various elements of factions in Chad will meet again to try to find a peaceful solution to their crisis.
As a time, is the intent no longer on the Chadian border?
Not at the moment, but of course the stability of Chad is of extreme importance to us, not only in terms of security, but also in terms of our total commitment to the well-being and welfare of our neighbors and to peace within the African continent, and to discourage extra-African forces from becoming very prominent operational in Africa.
Godfrey Odu, NTA News.
All member countries of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, have pledged their full cooperation with the new federal government in a bid to solve Nigeria's problems and effectively foster the growth of the sub-regional organization. The current chairman of the community, President Ahmed Sékou Touré, gave the pledge today when he paid a one-day visit to Lagos. For the rest of the story, over to our correspondent, Godfrey Odu.
Africa's elder statesman, President Ahmed Sékou Touré of Guinea, flew in this afternoon for a one-day visit, leading a 16-man delegation. The head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, led the reception team as the Guinean presidential jet arrived Murtala Mohammed Airport. External Affairs Minister Dr. Ibrahim Gambari was also at hand. President Sékou Touré's delegation includes 5 ministers, 2 of whom are members of Guinea's National Politburo and 1 member of the Central Committee. The Guinean leader received the traditional 21-gun salute and inspected a military honor guard mounted by a detachment of the Brigade of Guards. General Buhari later introduced the Chief of Staff, Supreme Headquarters Brigadier Tunde Diagmo, the Defense Minister Major General Badley, service chiefs, all the members of the Supreme Military Council, as well as the Minister of Information, who were all at the airport to receive the Guinean leader. Some Guinean nationals resident in Lagos also came to meet their president. After the exchange of airport courtesies, the 2 leaders drove to State House Marina, where each headed his respective delegation to the mutual talks. Discussions commenced without delay. Besides the president on the Guinean side were his Foreign Affairs Minister, Dr. Elhaj Abdoulaye Toure, Minister for Mines and Geology, Elhaj Ismail Toure, and the Agriculture Minister, Sirenion Benhazin. Others were the Ministers of Foreign Trade, Minister in charge of External Cooperation, and 2 diplomats. Joining the head of state on the Nigerian side were the Chief of Staff Supreme Headquarters Brigadier Diagmo, External Affairs Minister Dr. Gambari, and Defense Minister Major General Badley. Others were Finance Ministers Dr. Shuleye, the Permanent Secretary National Planning, and the Director General Africa Department of the Ministry of External Affairs. In his opening remarks, General Buhari said that President Touré's decision to come to Nigeria soon after the military took over government was indicative of his love and concern for fellow African nations.
It certainly shows Mr. President's concern and love for our fellow African country. This discussion which we are about to have is both on bilateral relations between us and the Republic of Guinea and on other African and world issues.
The talks lasted about 2 hours. Besides the cooperation agreement in various areas, Nigeria and Guinea have gone into joint ventures in mining and trade. President Touré, aged 62, is currently chairman of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. On his way to Morocco later this afternoon, President Touré commented on his visit and Nigeria's unique position in Africa. He gave the interview in French through an interpreter.
Problèmes particuliers tels que ceux soulevés par la fermeture de vos frontières.
My presence in Lagos at this time has to do with my present functions as current chairman of ECOWAS. This visit also has to do with the excellent relations which have always existed between the Federal Republic of Nigeria and Guinea. Discussions dealt with all the common problems which are agitating the minds of the ECOWAS states. And in the world, nobody is unaware of the demographic weight of Nigeria, Nigeria's economic weight and political role. And we were very happy to note the vigor with which the new government has expressed its commitment towards Africa. I know the new government has a lot of problems facing it, but I am confident that the government will be able to solve these problems and will be able to reaffirm its role towards the building of Africa. And we have expressed on behalf of the 16 member states of ECOWAS countries, our willingness to cooperate with the government in the tasks ahead. We were welcomed with great enthusiasm by the people. This enthusiastic welcome is also an expression of the confidence of the people in the present government.
Ahmed Secretary has led Guinea for 26 years and was one of the architects of the Organization of African Unity, OAU. Nigeria was one of the countries that sent substantial aid to victims of recent earthquakes in Guinea. Godfrey Odu, NTA News.
The compulsory retirement of civil servants whose services are no longer required will be a continuous exercise. The head of state, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, stated this while addressing members of the Federal Public Service Commission who called at Dodon Barracks today. He directed the commission to go through its records and recommend appropriate action that would restore confidence in public officers. General Buhari said that the present administration wants Nigerians to believe in God, themselves, and the nation, adding that public officers who have no faith in the system would be rooted out. According to him, the administration is concerned about quality of public officers and regretted that the best tradition of the service was eroded by politicians. General Buhari warned that under no circumstance would officers involved in fraud be allowed to remain in office. On employment, he assured that Nigerians would henceforth be given priority to alleviate the unemployment situation in the country. The chairman of the commission, Alhaji Shatima Bagudu, had earlier told the head of state that the recruitment of Nigerians abroad was being affected by lack of sufficient funds. Also at Dodon Barracks today, General Buhari stated that the military administration will utilize the institution of traditional rulers to mobilize the people in its efforts to promote the unity and economic development of the country. He made the statement while receiving representatives of the Oyo State Council of Chiefs, His Highness Obayola Matomi, the Atauja of Oshogbo, and the Timi of Ede, His Highness Oba Oladokun Oyelusi II. On the activities of wanted politicians abroad, General Buhari said the federal military government will do everything within its resources to counter the actions of the fugitives. The traditional rulers thanked the head of state for his confidence in them and assured him of their support and loyalty to the administration.